So, everybody, you're in for a real treat today. Welcome, Carlos, to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and it's so funny. And I haven't told you this yet, but we have a customer here that is doing a big installation for a big event here in Nashville. And
Mhm.
they're doing this thing with vines and all this kind of stuff. And they said, you know what? This is kind of the image that we're kind of looking for. And actually, and then they show me one of your pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be talking to Carlos here in just a day or two. So
Oh,
I
that's
thought,
amazing.
I know it's so funny how things work out that way. And so, for people who don't know, you're based in New York City, right?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. And I'd love to hear kind of how you began your journey into flowers.
Wow, I think, if I really look back in my archives, my flower journey started when I was 4 years old. And I had a
Really?
radio. Yes, I had a radio flyer. And I was like, I always, wanted to be like an entrepreneur. So I went into my mom's hibiscus bushes. I cut some. I shoved them in like some Dixie cups, and then I went like down the street and started like selling them. Onto
Wow,
one
I love that. I love that.
until one of my neighbors pulled one out and she was like, "There's no roots in here." I'm like, "Lady, just this is what's up. You have to buy it, and that's it. We're not talking anymore." That
It's,
was a concept, okay? So
yeah,
when I was
it was a
4 years
floral
old,
arrangement, not a potted
yeah,
plant. I mean, come on.
exactly. What's wrong with you, lady? And there I am, 4 years old, and I'm like, and you still have to pay. And but 25 cents.
There you go.
So it was like, so it was like, I think that's how it's funny how I look at at that, and then me growing up in Puerto Rico, I was always surrounded by flowers, and I guess I always loved them. I never thought I was going to end up doing that. I went to school for advertising, and I was always trying to find creative ways to make businesses stand out. Even when I was doing advertising and doing coming up with like campaigns for different commercials in Puerto Rico, I always wanted to push the envelope and see like if nobody else is doing it, what can we do different? How can we really just shake the world? And that was always my philosophy. And I ended up being a stylist. I ended up moving to Miami, then moving to New York, not working with flowers. I was a fashion stylist. Until one day I decided to take a break, and I have kids. I have two kids,
Hmm.
and I remember from when I threw my son's first birthday party, I ordered some flowers, and then I ordered these arrangements that were ridiculously expensive, and I didn't like them at all. I'm like, this is so boring. I could do so much better, like And then I think that actually started like let me actually start doing this, since I was basically a stay-at-home dad, and I went to the Flower School of New York just to get some, just some like knowledge on,
Sure.
techniques and whatnot. And I got my certification from there, and I was just totally inspired, being a fashion stylist before, and now just I was like, all right, so now I'm not, instead of like combining different pieces of outfits, to create an outfit, I'm gonna do the same thing with flowers. Okay, cool, I get it. So that was a transition to it. That's how everything started. And I was just very, very confident. I think I really all my previous life, everything paid off. Like even working in advertising, trying to think outside the box to create a campaign, and then being a stylist, combining textures, colors, like to create an outfit that's going to be on a red carpet or it's going to be in a TV commercial. So it was like the same thing, but now flowers. And I was a little bit intimidated because it's something new.
Sure.
Um, but then everything just kind of like came back to me, like all this knowledge that you were prepared, that prepared me for this journey. And then Floratorium was created when I decided to do flowers. I remember saying like, I want to do flowers, but here I am again. I don't want to, let's see, where I want to take this, and I know that weddings was the big thing, was sort of the big money making was weddings, parties, just retail, having your flower shop. So I established all those three elements, and I said to myself, okay, so these are the three top dollar elements. All right, so I don't want them. I'm gonna go the other route. there must be something that needs to be explored. And then I thought about my grandma and her silk flowers, and I remember how much I hated them. And I'm like, I'm gonna make them cool. I want to see if I can, use advertising as a way to, bring them into the equation. And then living in New York City, where you have all these stores and all these restaurants, all these businesses that they pay so much rent, like there's retail stores that pay $80,000 a month for just rent alone. And then they're like, oh, like trying to figure out what to put in their window to make people like come in.
Wow.
But then it's like, you're worrying so much about the inside of the store. But what about the outside? People just, people are jaded, like New York City, we see everything. So nothing impresses us anymore. So I was like, we have to push to bring florals, and maybe we can actually, create something that is branded and represents a brand, and we have to put them on the outside to bring people inside. Once they're inside, then just have a bunch of people attack them. But my responsibility will be to drag them in. And that's how it started, I wanted to create, and even the name came about that way too. Like Floratorium, it's a place where you witness art, but in flowers is the medium. So, we just wanted to make like beautiful creations of art, cater to, whichever business I was doing, so that people can actually go inside the stores. And it took me a minute to get people on board, but I think the first store we did was called Cezanne, and it's a French boutique in Soho. And we did that installation overnight, and the next day it was like the new iPhone came out, like the line went down the block, and it was so rewarding to see, and I think that set the tone, that set the seed for a new product, for a new idea, for a new way of doing flower arranging using silk flowers that had such a bad reputation.
Absolutely.
So,
wow, that is so cool. So how long of a period of time was there between you getting certified and Floratorium being born? Was it quick, or were you like getting your feet out there?
Yeah, I got my certification, and then I went to my basement. I think all businesses started in a basement. I don't know why. It's like, oh, there's always a basement involved. Even if you don't have one,
or garage.
There's a basement.
It's basement or garage.
Or garage, yes. Yes, that's correct. So my case was the basement. I had a little table, and I was just, using the techniques I learned in flower school, doing my arrangements. I was doing special flower arrangements for private jets. I live like next to a airport that does private jets. So, and I had a friend, so that was just my getting my feet wet kind of sort of thing, until I was like, all right, now I don't want to, I want to take this the other way. I need to make sure that my foundation in advertising, that I can use all that. So then I started thinking, and that's how I ended up going that route.
I see. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things when I see the work that you do, and you talking about and bringing in your advertising background, when you look for brands that you think, oh, would just connect with this image, or do you design the incredible design, for that brand? Does that make sense?
Totally. No. So I think we're very fortunate that the brands actually come to me, which is, we're very, very fortunate. And I think I use social media. I think social media, it's a key factor, and I am very open to adapt with times, which is very, very important. I know that, I have a website, but the website doesn't get visited as much. People ask me, do you have business cards? I'm like, no, because when somebody gives me a business card, I lose it. Even before you give me your business card, it's already lost. So it's something that I don't use on my business. I just rely on my Instagram. And that was always from day one. And I think by having your work out there and using and getting some knowledge on how it works, it automatically opens new markets, and people are actually seeing your work. So most of these brands, after that Cezanne installation that we did, and of course, I use all the hashtags that needed to be used to describe the kind of work that we're doing. And then I think after that, we started people just contacting us automatically. So then it was I think, and good thing you asked me that, because I think even my foundation as an advertiser, somebody will send me a request. Oh, this is us. This is our brand. I would like some, flower installation. I don't know how it works. And I'm automatically, okay, I go like immediately, I go to their website. I want to see who this person is, who's contacting me. It's a brand, it's fashion. Okay, what was their collection like? What were they inspired about? What did the textiles look like? What colors do they use? What is the collection that's going to be in the stores when this installation is going to go up? So even before they tell me what to do. No. I'm like, okay, no, that's cute, but no. I tell them what to do because I am the expert in this field, in the flowers.
Right.
And I think, they need somebody can tell you, yeah, I like peonies, which this is everybody says the same thing, and I'm great. Yes, I love them too, but let's make sure that it makes sense with your brand and with your brand identity, that somebody will see your floral installation and they're going to say, oh yeah, I get it. And it's branded. So, those whole things are, are key factors.
Well, I think knowing that terminology when you're having those conversations is really powerful, because it comes across very confident. You know the lingo, you have their interests,
at heart.
At heart. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And what you do is so specialized, because there's a lot of logistics that go into what you do. I don't even have to ask you that question, and I know it. And so I do have questions that I've got to ask, but this is probably a stupid question, but
no.
But I'm thinking, how do you do like the big reveal? Like when you're working. Okay, first of all, I'm asking a question. I'm going to back up for a second. In New York, I mean, when you walk the streets of New York, it's obvious why what you do stands out like so. I mean, the color, the vibrancy, the organic nature of what you create. It's so opposite of what New York City kind of really is in a lot of ways.
But that's a juxtaposition that I love. Like I love a juxtaposition, and I think that's key. That inspires me every day, which is why I don't think I would pick any other city. No offense to all of the other cities over there, but like I just love New York because the great of the city against the florals and the ideas and the concept that we create. That's the cherry on top. I don't think it would have the same element if I do this. I won't have the same effect if I do this in a closed room or something that is just too clean. And New York is it's incredible, and I love the people. I love the architecture. So even when we do these installations, I don't know if you notice on my Instagram, I just don't post a picture of just my flowers or the installation just like a catalog, but I like to. I work with a lot with my good friend who's a photographer. He's a fashion photographer, Javier Romero, and we wait to see like somebody that has some character, somebody that is dressed so New York, and then we take that shot because it's the final element, the final accessory to complement the whole thing, and it's something that you get to see in New York, the architecture, the people, and the florals in a very unexpected way. So that all combined is just very rewarding to see.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think about like the covers of Life magazine or whatever, where you see that humanity, that human connection to nature, and that juxtaposition, like you said, and you see all of that connection. That's something that we don't always see a lot of in photography, especially on social media. When we're seeing these beautiful places, but to capture that wow factor of people. So going back to what I was started to ask is, when you're doing these installations, it's got to be a multi-day project for some of these, right?
Well, yeah. Depending on how big the project is, now we have it like that. We have some experience with it, so we try to be very organized and also because we have so much demand right now, so we try to really just make this happen fairly quickly. But it all starts with the first meeting that we have, and then yes, we have the customer wants to do this installation, but then it's like we go into the concept, which is number one. Is super important. Everything needs to be conceptualized. So what are we going to do here? How are we going to tweak this? How are we going to make this special? How is it going to fit to the brand? And then we start with the installation part once the client approved and didn't have a heart attack with the quote. But then we we start the process, which is divided in two phases in my case. So phase number one is structure. Like, I don't use foam, I don't use chicken wire, I only use branches, because since I'm using silk product, I need to make sure that installation looks very realistic. And also, since the customers are investing on this, I want to create something that they can have in their business, and then later we can, let's say, in a couple months, let's change this. Let's make this winter, let's make this fall, let's make this into spring. So we come and we change the florals, and we just keep the structure. So the first part will be like creating the structure that takes usually 50% of the time, and then we finish up with the foliage and the flowers. So it's a long process, but it's like, if you're organized and everything is done, the way it has to be. So it can be done in one day. Or sometimes today we had two installations, one in the
Wow.
morning and one in the afternoon. So it's yeah.
Well, I just think to myself, when you walk into a room with a wedding, or you are delivering flowers, or you have a hotel lobby, there's this wow moment because you are on the outside and you walk in and then you see it. But this is,
Yeah.
and I guess I
Oh.
really did a bad job at the beginning of this podcast because, I know what you do, but I haven't really described it very well. But it's like everything that you do is outdoors almost, right? I mean, or
Always.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
it's on the facade of a building or the front of an
yes,
entryway, and
yes.
you're elevating this exterior all the time. And
Yeah.
so and I guess my thing is, with people walking by or customers in the area, they see you doing this installation, and then so it's
Absolutely.
not like you can pull away the curtain and all of a sudden, ta-da! Here's your big
Yeah,
moment. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's so great, like and yeah, that's what we focus on. That's why my name, our hashtag is the storefront florist, because we are
Okay.
just
Yeah.
focusing on storefronts. But it is, I mean, from the moment that we get there with all these branches and whatever, we start like working them out, people stop immediately. They're like, "What are you guys doing? Oh my God, this is so beautiful!" And I'm like, "We're just opening branches right now. Like,
You ain't seen nothing yet.
it's gonna get way more interesting." They're like, "Oh my God, no, I can't wait!" And I'm like, "Wow, this is New York. You've seen everything." But it's so rewarding because just to see, let's say we're like on the Upper East Side, or we're in the Lower East Side, or we're in the West Village, like depending on which area that we are, people just come out, and they're, this is like a coffee shop that people go to every morning, for example. And then as they see us working there, they're so excited, they're so curious on what we're doing. And of course, always the question that everybody asks: "Is somebody getting married here?" I'm like, not that I know. I mean, I hope they pick a better venue than just the sidewalk, but no.
Oh my gosh.
so but it's funny to see people's reaction because they're not used to it. This is
Right.
something unusual, which is why I also wanted to bring this new concept. Like, if you're not invited to a big wedding or the Met Gala, you will never see these beautiful installations, impactful of
Right.
floral. You won't, unless, like I said, you're invited to all these things. So this changed that. You could be walking, doing the walk of shame, or like going to the supermarket, and then there you are in front of this beautiful installation of flowers, and it can change your mood. It can change your whole day. And I think that's what it's all about, like just bring, especially coming out of this pandemic, and like being like,
Right.
all the hardships that New York can bring to you. It really just will spark joy. And I think that was the number one thing when we started doing this. It's about, like, just make people smile. And I think that's one of the things that we really enjoy, to see, like, just people connect and just come talk to us. And we're very open, we love people, to stop and just like ask us questions and just be very interested in what we're doing.
That's great. I feel like
Mhm.
there's just so I don't know. I think especially after the pandemic, I I just feel like people need that. You know, it's that connection to nature and to,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
flowers and everything. And even though they're artificial, I'm glad to hear though that you make the effort to not use foam and to not use chicken wire and all that, but you're using a natural infrastructure at least. Because I'm sure
Yes.
that's a concern for some people that artificial flowers, you know, they last forever, literally.
Yeah. Yeah. But don't be,
And
but I said, but don't be greedy. They can last forever, so to speak, but don't be greedy. Like, you usually, like this type of installation, people will spend all this money for a wedding and you have them for one day,
right,
or, for a special event. Let's do a happy medium. Let's do it seasonal. You'll have beautiful florals outside of your store for a whole season, for 6, 8 months tops. But don't just stay with that, because of course there's rain, there's sun, there's snow, there's
pollen.
wind, there's people that like to touch things in the middle of the night or take a few, it's a little souvenir. So it's good, the installation is going to do what needs to be done, and then let's do something different. So
Yeah,
most of the clients, at the beginning, they're always very concerned, and they're like, oh my God, this is okay. How much is this going to cost me? Like, how much is this going to last, and all that stuff. But once we finish the installation and they see the community coming together, and then they start seeing it on Instagram, they call me a week after. Okay, when are we going to change this? And I'm like, oh, look at you.
yeah,
So it's really fun. It's really they see the value of it, because it's a new product.
sure.
It's something new that they never, even, when people call us, they're like, I have no idea how much this is going to cost. This is something new to us. And now, of course, we try to guide them and explain them, the prices of things, but more importantly, the effect that it's going to have on their business.
Right, right.
Um,
Well, and I think, okay, so being that you've been in the fresh world, not for a super long time, but fresh versus silk,
mhm,
like what do you think
yeah.
the price difference is? You know, is it three times, five times? You know,
Yeah.
what is the price difference going this way versus the other way? I mean, I know the value's there. I'm just curious.
No, it is quite significant. The funny thing here, that when you're doing fresh flowers, you could buy just let's say a Pink Floyd rose that is gonna cost you, I don't know, let's say $5, versus a David Austin garden rose that is gonna cost you 30. But once you do silk, the prices are pretty much the same,
Ah,
because
yeah.
it's just the same kind of mold. So some people are like, wait, but then I order an installation that is all greenery, and then how come it's the same? I'm like, well, it's just, it's silk material, that is gonna it doesn't change the price as much. So there
Right.
is a correlation. um but so flowers are going to be more expensive, obviously, but it's gonna be all the flowers gonna be pretty much in the same
Price range.
range, where real flowers you're gonna have like so much difference.
Right. Yeah, well,
you
it's the
know
difference in having a manufactured item versus supply and demand with fresh and perishable items. I know
oh
when
yeah.
I used to buy artificial flowers at the wholesale house I worked at, I mean, there are a lot of times when I would be buying something, I'm like, wow, that's just, I can sell that for the same price I sell fresh and it lasts forever, you know? And
Yes.
it's always interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Gosh, I have so many questions. The structures that you use, I know you said branches and things like that. I know that I just ordered this really big wisteria vine
Okay.
that's going to be like going up for this event, and like I said, the idea was inspired by it's one of your images, I think. And
Of
so,
course.
of course, that's the burden of being, you know, the trendsetter here. You just have to live with it, unfortunately. But
Yes.
it's like I tell my customers, it's the burden of having good taste. It's just you. It's just part of it. Um, and so you know, how do you find? I mean, do you have to like? Do you have people that source this stuff for you? But I'm just thinking. I mean, some of these vines are massive, and they go like two
Oh
stories
yeah.
high, and
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. They do. I mean, I do have my provider here in New York City, which his name is Major Wholesale Florist Louis.
Okay.
He's been in the flower market for a very long time, and he actually owns a lot of acres upstate New York. And he actually goes into the forest. He has a group of people that are, foragers, and they go into the forest, like racing poison ivy and ticks and all this stuff, But they provide this in the flower market, and it's funny because I think it became a trend. The reason why I use them and what I started using them was to like kind of like balance out the fact that I'm using the silk flowers. But now it just became a very strong trend. So I see everybody a lot of just using that, and even speaking with them, they're like, oh, this is something that gets ordered a lot now. I mean, it's interesting to see, but yeah, like for me, I need to use them as part of our signature look.
Sure.
Every installation that you see, you'll have a very strong base of a couple branches. And this is something that we do by hand. Even we take a bale of curly willow and I braid it. We actually braid it by hand to create a very solid structure, and then we add the wisteria to create movement and to have those like organic feel to it, and then we add the materials after, and then so they're seamless. I hate to see any mechanics. I don't like to use zip ties. Like every time I see a zip tie, it makes me cringe. And everybody seems to use them, and nobody minds. Like you see it right there. I can see it. So it
That
makes
drives me
me like,
crazy too.
oh,
Yeah.
it drives me crazy. It's like, hide your mechanics, por favor, so that we so like, especially because I'm so careful because I'm using silk flowers, so I have to be, there's no room for error. Like I have to make sure, at least try my best, um as hard as I can, to just make sure that the structure is seamless, you don't see anything, and then when we add the product, everything is just so seamless and organic looking. And then the only thing that could go wrong would be like, oh, these are fake. I'm like, well, yeah, you got me. But but it's fun. I think I always like try to make sure that everything looks as real as possible. I think my favorite silk flowers is just a jasmine vine that I order a year in advance, and it's just this super like beautiful vine that just, it looks so bright green, and looks in, when you see the installations at the end, I use it in all my installations, but you'll see it at the end, it just makes everything look like it's growing. So it really throws off, like nobody would know, that it's artificial, at least
That's
on day one and
amazing.
two.
No, I get
Yeah.
it totally. So you just brought sourcing of this material up. I'm thinking to myself, with all the shortages with fresh flowers, but then all the production issues with a lot of things, and boats sitting off the LA coast, and trying to get shipments unloaded
Yeah.
and things. How has
Yeah.
that been for you, trying to design and produce installations?
You know, I've always been very good with making magic with like crumbs, so I had to get creative sometimes, because I was, for example, that particular product that I was mentioning to you, the jasmine, I had to wait for another year to get
Wow.
replenishment of it. So, of course I bought like, I think almost a container of it, but just to keep it, because I always use it, and it's actually part of our signature. But it's just, when you're, if you're a creator, when you're an artist, you just like, you take something and then you turn it into something beautiful, and you just have to work with what you have. So I had to navigate through all that, but at the end of the day, it played out, so we make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I
Right.
think any good creative entrepreneur, you just have to learn to do that. I mean, it's just, things happen. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's
Oh
fresh or
yeah.
if it's artificial. It's,
No,
yeah,
exactly, absolutely,
it just
absolutely.
happens. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that that is part of your strategy. I think that one of the things too that I mean, just you said earlier, you guys produced two installations today. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah,
That's insane. So like,
yeah.
I don't know how to ask this question, but how many of these projects do you usually produce a year?
Oof. Well, I don't know, like everything was like because after COVID, of course, when COVID
Right.
happened, that, which is something that we have to like talk about, obviously. when COVID happened, everything just shut down, like everything was stopped. I was in my studio and I'm like, what's going to happen now? Like, and I started like to think, okay, what am I going to do now? Like what's going to happen? And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stop thinking about this because I'm a creative person and I love to keep working and I love what I do. I can't be bothered with all these like torments and worries. You know what? Let me just go to the hospital and bring flowers for the nurses. It was Mother's Day, 2020. And one of my suppliers that actually have real flowers, they were throwing out like all these fresh flowers because
It was
it
bad.
was going to go bad. So
Right.
so I just went and I packed my truck and I just like started giving them away, just to keep myself moving. And I'm like, you know what, this is not going to stop me. So we went to the hospital, to the Lenox Hill Hospital in the West Village, and we did an installation for the nurses. It was of course I would do a mix of artificial and preserve. But it was just the beginning, kind of like to keep some, just bring some light to this whole thing and just keep doing what,
Sure.
so when the pandemic happened, like all of a sudden, so restaurants that
Sure.
because I was doing more retail and, try to bring businesses outside, so I had this client that I had talked about for like a studio that she was going to open, and it didn't, we didn't end up doing anything, but it happened to be one of the owners of Marea. And Marea is a very famous restaurant out here in New York. It's in Central Park South, and it's a Michelin star restaurant. It's very famous.
Wow.
Like you'll see J-Lo one day or Jay-Z the other day having dinner there. It's a very well-known Italian seafood Michelin star restaurant. So when the Department of Transportation was giving permission for restaurants to reopen, they were okay. So you cannot open inside, but you can actually build some kind of structure on the outside, on the street. So they were in Central Park South, 59th Street. So they don't have a street to operate because there's a bus stop in front of the restaurant. So they couldn't use the outside.
Wow.
They can only use their sidewalk. Now their sidewalk on top of it, because of course everything keeps getting worse and worse. The sidewalk had a beautiful scaffolding, which is another thing about New York. Like
Yes.
if you're gonna change a window, the whole scaffolding has to go up. So we get a call from the owners of Marea. We meet over there, and the guy was Mr. Hamas Fadakani. He's one of the owners. He's the owner. So he came and meet me there, and he's like, "Listen, just tell me what it is. Tell me all the bad news. Tell me you cannot decorate this thing because I've been on the phone forever and I cannot use the street. And please tell me, how am I going to sit Carolina Herrera, which is one of our guests? How am I going to sit her underneath this ugliness? Like, this is not, And I'm like, well, you're kind of right about this. You cannot decorate a scaffolding. There's no way." And he's like about to start crying, and I'm like, well, however, what I'm going to do, because I cannot decorate this, I'm going to make it disappear. And he's
Okay.
like, this guy just
A
kind of
magic
opens and
trick.
he's like,
Okay.
what? And I'm like, well, this is a new project that we're focusing before the pandemic, and it's called glam folding. It's a trademark and everything, and it's just like to address that issue, because a lot of business suffers when all of a sudden you get a scaffolding in front covering your sign, just making your store awful. So it's like, all right, maybe let's use this as something positive. Maybe
Because
I
it
can
looks
take
like
this
you're closed. I mean, it makes it look like you're closed or you're
Yes,
whatever. Yes.
you're under construction, you're
Right.
this and you're that. So imagine this Michelin star restaurant that they put a scaffolding in front of them, and that's a space where you can actually have to sit people. So we're like, all right, so we need to really think of something here. So that was like, give me a second. Let's first of all, let's conceptualize the heck out of this, because we really need to make this place disappear. The scaffolding cannot be here, period. So then, and on top of it, the scaffoldings in New York City are painted silver, and they're all silver. So it's like a very harsh color to begin with. So I started we painted all the poles brown, because I know that I was going to attach branches to it. So I needed them to disappear. So we painted all the poles brown. We painted the ceiling green of the scaffolding. We created custom built planters that they were basically these the square boxes of plywood that they connected on at the bottom of the poles. And then from there, I grew my willow, my wisteria, and then I just created this entire garden around the scaffolding. And the concept was called Under de Marea, which in Spanish, marea, the name of the restaurant, means tide. So we wanted to play along with these elements of
Oh,
like the ocean
cool.
because it's a seafood restaurant. So we started like doing like a lot of like dark blue florals at the beginning, slightly with ombre transitioning into a lighter blue and finishing up with white colors at the top, like the foam of the ocean, like it's in the ocean tide. So we kind of like play along with the restaurants. Oh yeah, I'm crazy. I always like to think about this little thing and how can they match. And it's my advertiser in me, you know, like I need to make sure that it and then of course, so the restaurant had a beautiful sign that says Maria. It was a neon sign. So I brought it from the inside. I put it on the outside, and it just completely. I mean, the scaffolding was gone. There was no scaffolding. It was just beautiful flowers, beautiful florals. And the next day, New York Times and the Post, everybody was covering it, and a lot of people just taking pictures of it. And then that was the day, you know, because then we created a product to help with the problem of the pandemic, where you have to have a lot of restaurants. You have to come up with. Doesn't matter that you spend millions of dollars on the inside of your restaurant or whatever. Now you have the street or the sidewalk, then you have to make this into a place to invite guests. So after that, it was gone. You know, after that, the phone never stopped ringing. It was just, and it opened another market, restaurants. You know, we were doing retail, so this is like you know, and then we kept on doing that, and it was just it was an amazing turnout. It was very well. It was everywhere, so it
Wow.
really changed our game.
I can see that.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Hmm.
and you can tell there has to be so much planning and thought that goes into that. So, from
Oh
the
yeah.
very first walkthrough to completion, how long did that take you to do that for, Chris?
I mean, honestly, it's like every time I go, because I like to go to scout. I like to go and do a walkthrough. As soon as I see the place, I just need to see it for 5 seconds, and I know exactly what I want to do.
Really?
Uh, it's I don't have. It's so funny. I don't know. I think I always go with my first instinct, you know, and I'm a very literal too, which is funny. Like I'm like seafood. Okay, we have to do something ocean related. Like I'm already boxed myself in there. Um, and but then even though I'm boxed myself in there, okay, now that I'm in this, I want to do something ocean. But then how can we turn this around and make it different? And you know, so that happens fairly quickly. And then of course the formulas and just like trying to calculate, you know, how much is this, you know, how many branches I'm going to need and all the product that's also we have, you know, thanks to Excel, we can kind of like do our formula and calculate how much, you know, material that we need. And it happens very quickly, you know, with a good strong team, we bang out and, you know, structure in one day, and the next day we do flowers and foliage and flowers.
Wow. So quick. Now, do you have to keep an
Yeah.
inventory? Like, do you have, or do you just have really great sources?
I do. I love to keep inventory, like especially my foliage, my greenery, things that I know that I need, like that jasmine that
It
I
goes
was
in
mentioning,
everything.
and
Yeah.
it goes with everything. It just makes everything come to life. My jasmine, my camellia foliage, ficus, like all these type of greenery that I always need, and which is great because they're not gonna rot, you know. So I can order. I order a whole bunch of them. I stock it, you know, but also, you know, you have to be very um you know, understand that even though I'm keeping all this material in stock, you know, just be try hard, you know, like which is why I spend so much time and I spend a lot of the budget into the structures. I think that's something that is very, very important, you know, to just kind of like balance out the fact that I'm using
Yeah.
the silks.
No, I understand. Well,
Hmm.
I know what kind of brought us together is an event that you're doing in Atlanta coming
Yes,
up.
yes,
And
yes.
so tell us about what's going on in Atlanta.
So in Atlanta, they're doing it's the Buckhead Village shopping center in Atlanta, which, you know, the whole idea is very special to me because when I moved from Puerto Rico, I was working at Neiman Marcus in Miami. I was introduced to the luxury retail world, and I was, I was instantly inspired by that whole world because I get to work. I used to work for Chanel. I used to, like directly. So I could see the process of how a collection gets, a concept gets created and gets built and all that stuff. So so to be able to go to a mall that actually sells that, it reminds me of my beginnings, and it's going to be something super super fun. So just bringing a little bit of what we do here in New York to bring it, to Atlanta. So that's going to be super exciting. I think we're creating a piece that I'm calling Psychedelic Dreams, and it's inspired
Fun.
by the high. It's going to be super fun. I wanted to do vibrant colors, and it's going to be like this hanging garden inspired by the hanging gardens of Babylonia, which we never know if they really happen or not, but in my mind they did. So I'm going to do my conceptualized reinterpretation of how would that be if it was a dream, because we don't know if it was a dream or if it was a reality. So it'll be something you have to see. I don't want to spill the bean.
It's going to be a reality in Atlanta. So that's all that matters,
Yes,
and
yes,
that's coming
yes,
up the end of the month. Isn't it like the
yes,
28th, 29th,
yes,
30th or
yeah,
something?
yeah. It
So,
starts on the 28th. We're gonna be in Vegas. I'm gonna be in Vegas doing a big project that we've been working on, and I'm gonna have to just come straight from Vegas to Atlanta. But it'll be something super fun, and I'm excited to do. Like, I think it's the first time that I'm doing a festival per se, that I'm being invited to come over and show our work. So it's very rewarding to see that people appreciate, and they see what we do, and they think and they're inviting us over to share what we do with another market. So it's we're very happy to be there and excited to share what we do.
wow, Vegas. I can't imagine. So what can you tell us what you're doing in Vegas?
Yes, of course. So one of our clients is the Tao Group. They own Tao Restaurant, all the Tao restaurants in New York, and they have restaurants in LA and Vegas. So it's a new beach club called Tao Beach. And it's a super challenging project because it's a desert. So of course they're like, okay, so this is the desert and we have this pool, but we wanted to make it look like Bali. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, the good thing is that I love Bali. I've been there a couple of times, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. But it's a jungle, so trying to make a jungle in a desert, it's going to be very, very challenging. But I think we paid our dues and we're ready to tackle it. So it'll be something fun. Plus, I'm actually working, collaborating with an amazing artist that I'm obsessed with. His name is Daniel Popper, and I don't know if you know of him, but he
Oh,
makes these incredible sculptures that they look like they're made out of wood, and they're usually goddesses and like these deities. That he started doing this in Tulum and different gardens. He's doing something in the botanical gardens in Chicago, and it's just like this. I'm like 20 feet tall, like this deities, beautiful art, sculptures. So everything he does, he complements with greenery, with foliage, with tropical foliage. So I'm gonna be collaborating with him and doing that. So it'll be super fun. It's like it's great to collaborate, which I love to do. I love to collaborate with other artists. I think it's great. Like even if you're an artist, you collaborate with somebody else. More is gonna come. More creativity is gonna get added into the mixture. So it's always good to do.
sure. Well, and I feel like that's one of those situations, it's that expression where iron sharpens iron, and sort of everybody elevates through that process. And who knows, this might become a whole nother, just like the restaurant business, this may become a whole thing. You follow him around and you're,
Yes, 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 absolutely, absolutely.
that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
having, being that your background has, with advertising and visual like displays and fashion, I mean, that whole connection, um, there's always that thing that I'm always curious about what inspires people. And like you just mentioned Bali, and I'm like, when you can travel places like that, I mean, what incredible inspiration. So I'm curious
Oh
what
yeah.
really kind of feeds your creativity because
Yes,
it's
yeah.
stunning.
But travel, definitely travel. I think I always I don't in every design that I do, I always try to recreate what Mother Nature did. I don't try to, I don't try too hard, I'm trying to say, like, I don't think so much and let me see what I can mix with this and that. I get inspired by nature. So I
Sure.
love to travel. Every summer we spend time in the south of France, and I absolutely love it. I just relax and I just chill. And I just love to seeing all these beautiful wisteria plants, bougainvillea,
Oh yeah.
lavender, that just like it's just so beautiful. And just to see that against the architecture and these old buildings in old cities, and these things just grow out of a small crack on the floor, and then they just create this majestic plant. And I'm like, oh my God. So that for me, it's 100% inspiration. I take pictures, and I always try to recreate that and bring that into New York City. Because you don't get to experience that if you're not in Europe, or you don't go to these like old places,
Right.
Greece. So I try to recreate that, which works great when I'm doing hospitality, where I'm doing restaurants. If it's an Italian restaurant, okay, let's get inspired by Capri. Let's try to do this in activation of all lemons, and recreating something that I saw. And so yeah, so the traveling is definitely something that sparks my creativity. um and yeah, I mean, I think that everybody should be able to do that as well. It really, it really changes things.
Well, and of course, just being able to come to one of your installations, you get a little taste of that. It's kind of like you can be transported into another place in the world almost. And
Yeah,
I love the idea.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. And it's usually or travel or some fun memories that I have of my childhood. you know um I think one of the most uh important or significant and sentimental installation for me was one that I did at the Garment District in New York City. uh that the Garment District in New York, this houses like a lot of like production houses. They
Sure.
they used to create full collections, and pattern making, and fabric stores, and designers. And the production there has been dwindling through the years. Of course, we're having production move to China, and you see a market that has been struggling because of that. So now after the pandemic, it was just like too much for the whole industry to take on. And we were approached. Well, actually, no, we approached them because I wanted to do something there, and they had this old information booth on in the middle of the Garment District. It was just like this structure that was sitting there, and I wanted to transform it into a pincushion tomato, because I remember my grandma had this like little tomato thing with all the pins sticking up, and I just remember that. And like me coming from fashion, it's something that it always reminds me of that. So I was like, you know what? Let's turn this old information booth that it's like 9 feet tall, like I think it was like 15 feet, circumference. Let's turn this into a pincushion tomato. So, and that was so fun. Of course, they love the idea of it. When I covered, I don't know how many branch. I mean, we use so many branches just to cover the structure. And then I use red roses and red hydrangea to kind of like mimic the tomato. And we added greenery at the top to be like the leaves of the tomatoes. And then we made all these pins. Remember those needles, right? The needles
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you will see
No,
on
I
a pin
know.
cushion. So I got PVC pipe. We spray painted them in chrome, and we added foam heads with carnations in different colors to mimic that. Then, of course, I called like models, influencers, people that actually work in the garment district to come the day of the installation to help me put them in place. So it was just super fun. And then, of course, like, to see people that work in the industry, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much for this tribute. Like, this is, thank you, like, for this. So that was just very rewarding, to see people just be super excited, and to know that we're doing something for them.
Mm. Well, it's funny.
That
It's
was really
like,
cool.
no, I think it's awesome. I think when people, when you, someone like you takes the time to do that, then they feel seen or validated, because it's like somebody thought of them and somebody invested in them, because they walk by this booth, what, every day, like
Yeah,
two or three
yeah.
times, four times a day, maybe.
Oh,
And
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. And
and you
and the
can't
funny
help but
thing is when I
smile.
no, no, absolutely, absolutely. And for me, because that booth, when I was a stylist, I had one of my celebrity clients. We wanted to do a clothing line together. So I was a stylist. I'm like, you know what? Yes, let's do this. I'm in New York, so I'm gonna go to the factories, and I didn't know where to start because I had no idea about that. So I remember going to that booth, and I was like, yeah, I'm a stylist, and I want to do this like t-shirt line that I wanted to create. So where should I go? And they would print out a listing, and they will give you a listing. There's a couple factories in the garment district, and they will tell you where to go. So that was why the booth was there for, just to help you get that information.
Wow.
This is in 2008. So now obviously there's no reason for that booth, to be there, because now you can Google everything.
Right.
I know this information is, it's available to you, on your phone. So that's why they were gonna, take it down. And I was, well, before you take it down, let me just remind people of, the usage, that it had and what was used for, and pay a tribute
Yeah.
to this whole sector. Yeah.
It's interesting. And it's kind of just the dynamic that I've seen with the smaller businesses that have been trying. And I think, again, it's part of the pandemic where they're trying to find new revenue sources. But I have
Yeah.
noticed people creating either like photo opportunities with installations similar to this, or they have been approached by other small businesses, not on the scale of like what you do, but still to kind of make that kind of impact either in a store or just outside the store in that area and
Yeah.
things. And I just wondered if there were any tips or pointers or things when people are trying to, do something like this, and they're just getting
Yeah.
started. What would you say to maybe encourage them? I don't know.
No, 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 absolutely. As a matter of fact, like I wanted to give back to the community, and I'm gonna be teaching a class soon, because I want this,
Awesome.
yes, yes, because like I see a lot of like other people trying to do, doing what we do, but it's like you have to. It's not just show up and then just put a whole bunch of flowers. No, you need to have an intention and a concept, and then to just really be careful about like just sending the right message, because it's like a billboard. you
Right.
know uh this is a billboard, so you're sending a message. It's not just like, oh, I'm shoving all these flowers. You need to make sure that the message is right, that this flower goes with this flower, and of course that all these flowers that you have selected make sense with the brand that you're actually um representing. So then the message is seamless, and it makes the impact that it does, and it makes justice. So like I would love, this is something that I want to, that I wanted to teach and show people, and just like the things that are very important to to keep in mind
Sure.
when you're doing this. Because like you said, like even you have your wisteria vines that you order. uh so it's like it's good to see people that are that are using this, because it's fun. It's about having something new, um and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so you've got this creative visionary background. I feel like one of the things doing what you do that is the one of the biggest obstacles is scale, understanding scale. Because when you're dealing with
Hmm.
some of these bigger buildings or scaffolding or storefronts,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
important to have the right size product. How do you kind of navigate that?
I mean, in terms of the scale, like it's gonna translate to the amount that I need, because I cannot, like, I don't see if a building, oh, this building is big, I'm gonna need like this big, 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 big peonies, because they grow so much,
Sure.
so I cannot change that. However, the amount of the product that I'm gonna need, that's when it's gonna start adding up. And we just, we create a formula, we calculate by square footage, and we kind of have an
Oh,
idea
okay.
of how many. Yeah, so we usually take measurements, and we kind of like, okay, so this is this length. We calculate the square footage, and then I know exactly how many branches, how many flowers, how many foliage I'm going to need to cover that, to the extent of what we think it's appropriate, and it's or how I like to see things.
Right. And do you
you
approach
know.
it sort of like floral design, like fresh with fresh product, where you layer it, where you do the structure, then you do the
Mhm.
greenery, then you do the
Yeah,
floral. So it's kind of
yeah,
the same, really.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty much the same. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I think that's yeah, that's it's very simple. It's just like the selection of the flowers and the greenery and the shape of the structure. Done. You will never see me doing like an arch or something that is so conventional. I try to. I have a like Joan Rivers. I have like a bank of like pictures that I saw on my travels and unusual shapes and plants growing on a building, a specific way. And I'm like, wow, I want to do that. And it's just like a reminder of how free nature is. And she just basically always looking for the sun,
True.
but just to try to imitate the way she grows. That's how I try to, do my installations.
I love that. Well, and it's true.
Um,
It's like when I've seen what few photos I've seen of your work, I'm like, it looks like it just grew there. I mean, it doesn't look
yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying? It looks
yeah, yeah,
natural.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever it is. Uh, I know today I was showing someone like, oh, I'm gonna talk to Carlos, and I was like showing him photographs of your Instagram, and they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's and it was just incredible. So okay,
Yeah.
so my last question, which is always the case, and I don't even think I might not have warned you about this, so I apologize. Is always an advice question, and of course you just answered one. But anyway, so I'm just wondering if you had a piece of advice that either meant a lot to you that somebody shared with you, or something you'd like to share with our listeners.
Of course, like if you're a flower designer, try to stay away from from your comfort zone. Which is I did from day one. Like always travel the less travel road because everybody knows what happens in this highway. But what about this little road here? Like try to make something new out of your business, the way you're doing things. Even if this pandemic show us something, it's like that we had a time to just reflect and try to improve the way we do things by 10%. If you're a tea maker, make your tea better 10%. How can we focus on doing that better? Even if it's 10%, at the end of the day, if everybody collectively does the same, we can have a better world. So if you're a florist and you can maybe try to see, okay, how can I do something different, something better from my business? So try to, let's say that flower that you hated that much, that carnation that it's sitting there that you hate, I'm going to do something with carnations. Like try to, you know, just go to your, step out of your comfort zone and do something that you really struggle with or something that you thought was, challenging or something that you think you didn't like to do and go that route. And you're talented. Everybody, we're doing flowers. It's like they're beautiful regardless, so if we try to experience something else, it'll open the door, it'll spark your creativity and it'll be rewarding at the end.
Well, Carlos, that was wonderful, and I appreciate you sharing that. And thank you for making the Flower
Thank
Podcast
you.
better by being
Ah,
on it. Thank you so much.
thank you, Scott. This was my first podcast, so I'm no longer a podcast virgin. So I thank you for taking away my flower virginity.